The NFL draft is less than a week away, just days away. And today we're going to be ranking the top 10 tight ends in the 2025 NFL draft class. Without further ado, let's get right into it. My tier one, tight end one, the only tight end in this tier, and that would be Tyler Warren. I think this is pretty easy. Tyler Warren had a monster season. No tight end can really compare with the season that he had in 2024. 1,233 receiving yards, 31.4% target share, 104 receptions, 8 touchdowns, just a monster season. And the year before that, in 2023, 422 receiving yards, 34 receptions, 7 receiving touchdowns. So he had a good year the year before, and he can block as well. I know there's some concerns about the 31-inch arm length, which is 12th percentile amongst tight ends. But you look at the whole body of work. I believe I'm not too concerned about the arm length. The 30.2% college dominator rating, the season that he had last year, I think he's, at 6'6", 256 pounds. I think he's a tight end that can block really well and be a weapon in the passing game. And he's probably going to get the draft capital that we want to see him get. So Tyler Warren is my tight end one. Going to be chalky here. Colston Loveland is my tight end two. And to be honest with you, I like Colston Loveland. I don't love him, no pun intended. He did have back-to-back good to great. I mean, good is probably a better word. Back-to-back good seasons at Michigan. 2023 was slightly more productive from a yardage standpoint. 649 receiving yards, 14.4 yards per reception that year. Not quite a 20% target share, 18.3% for receiving touchdowns. In 2024, 582 receiving yards, a 27.9% target share. That just goes to show you how Michigan's offense changed from 2023 to 2024, featuring Loveland. Now, he just turned 21 years old, so he's going to be a younger prospect, and his college dominator rating is in the 99th percentile, 49.6%. That's the amount of production that he had in terms of how his offense did. So, again, Colston Loveland, I like the film. I don't love the film. Again, a terrible non-pun there. But he is very clearly the tight end two in a tier of his own in tier two. So let's move on to my tight end three. And Mason Taylor is going to be my tight end three. And I know it might be unconventional. Some people might have, we'll talk about some of the other names later on, but Mason Taylor is another player that isn't quite 21 years old. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's not unathletic either. A 4.74 40-yard dash, a good speed score for a tight end of his size, and he produced in 3 straight seasons. 414 yards on 14 games as a tight end for LSU in 2022, and then in 2024, 546 yards. 2 receiving touchdowns in his age 20 season on 55 receptions. So he was solid every single year for the LSU Tigers, and the film is really good. And so Mason Taylor, for me, is my tight end 3. Let's move down to Terrence Ferguson, who is my tight end 4. And Terrence Ferguson, I don't understand why more people aren't talking about him, to be honest, because at 6'5", 247 pounds, he's one of the more athletic tight ends in this class. 4.63 40-yard dash. That's really good for a tight end, especially at his size. He is a little bit older, 22 years old, not incredibly old. It's not like he's 24 or 25. Coming off of his best season in college, 591 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns in his age 21 season, 43 receptions, back-to-back seasons of over 40 catches for the Oregon Ducks. And like I said, you can tell in his route running that he's one of the more athletic tight ends in this class. And I think he's being slept on a little bit. And I think, to be honest, for a team that needs a tight end, I think you're going to see Terrence Ferguson being taken a lot higher than people think. And now let's get to the guy who is probably on a lot of people's boards as their tight end 3, and that would be Harold Fanta Jr. And he used to be my tight end 3 until I dug into the tape, because the numbers speak for themselves. This past year, 117 receptions, led the nation in receiving yards as a tight end with 1,555, a 37.3% target share. in his age 20 season. He's not quite 21 years old, but you look at the athletic profile, the testing numbers have me a little bit concerned. He only ran a 4.71 at the NFL Combine, 40-yard dash. I was expecting him to run a little bit faster. Now, straight line speed isn't everything. I understand that. But when you watch him on film, I think the film isn't as good as I thought it would have been. I was more impressed by some of these other tight ends that I have ranked ahead of him. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't be, it doesn't mean he can't be a producer at the NFL level. It certainly doesn't mean that. But I have my concerns from an athletic standpoint. Like, would he have produced the way Colston Loveland did if he played at Michigan? Would he have produced the way that Terrence Ferguson produced at Oregon in the same way? I'm just not sure. And, trying to balance the production with the film here has him, for me, as my tight end number 5. Now let's move down to the tier 4, Oronde Gadsden the second from Syracuse. Again, another one of these tight ends, and I'm overall down on this tight end class. I don't necessarily think that we have great depth here. I don't even know if we have elite options the way we did last year with Brock Bowers. A lot of people think Tyler Warren is elite. I'm not so sure. I think he's really good, not elite. But Oronde Gadsden the second has some upside. Athletically, he's not going to wow you. 4.72 40-yard dash is just above average for a tight end. But the production is there, and the tape is there. In 2022, 969 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns in his age 19 season. And then this past year, he had a Liz Frank injury in 2023, which held him out of that season, only 2 games played. But he came back strong in 2024, 922 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns in his age 21 season. And like I said, the PFF numbers are going to back this up too, that PFF had him as their number 4 tight end in terms of receiving grade. So that speaks highly of the film. And I think he's a good route runner. He's not going to give you much after the catch, but in terms of just being a solid tight end that isn't going to be a liability in pass protection or in the run blocking game, Oronde Gadsden is just a solid player who I think can contribute in the same way that, Dalton Schultz contributed in the NFL. So I don't love this tight end class, but you can do a lot worse than Oronde Gadsden the second. Next up on my list at tight end 7 in this tier is Elijah Arroyo. Now, I understand he had a great Senior Bowl, and I understand that, athletically, he might be one of the more gifted tight ends in this class. The problem is we're banking off of one season, really. And when I say one season, I mean one season. 590 receiving yards this past year, 35 receptions on 45 targets. He only played in 5 games before that. And injuries are going to be a concern with Elijah Arroyo. You're going to hope that he can stay healthy. And typically, I think it's a good rule of thumb. If you get hurt in the college, you're probably going to get hurt in the NFL. So I think whichever team drafts him is going to have to take that into consideration. He has maybe a little bit more upside than some of the other tight ends I have ranked ahead of him. But in terms of just an injury concern, that's in the lack of production in college, aside from one season, that's why I have him down where I have him. And we just haven't seen enough from him to get a clear picture of what he can do. We're going to move to tier 5 for our last 2 tight ends on the board, or at last 3 rather. Luke Lachey I have as my tight end number 8. And if you watched Iowa, you will understand that the quarterback play was bad and the offense was bad outside of Caleb Johnson this past year. But Luke Lachey was, although he didn't contribute a ton to the offense, he was a steadying force in the middle of the field for whatever quarterback Iowa was throwing out there from 2021 to 2024. He only played 3 games in 2023, but he was a steady, reliable player for them for at least 2022 and 2024. His best season came in 2022, 398 receiving yards, on 20 or 44 targets, 28 receptions in 12 games played. And I think these Iowa tight ends, they're all fairly good blockers. I think he has the potential to be a backup tight end. Potentially, he can be a spot starter. Again, we're getting down the list here on a class that I don't think has a ton of depth, but I think there is a little upside here with Luke Lachey, and I think in a different offense and a different scheme with a different team, he might have produced a little bit more, and he might be getting drafted a little bit higher. So Luke Lachey for me at number 8. Gunnar Helm is going to be up next for us, tight end from Texas. Gunnar Helm, 6'5", 241 pounds. The athleticism isn't quite there for me, at least that I saw. But he did produce this past season, 786 receiving yards, 60 receptions, 76 targets. So the tape to me wasn't spectacular, which is why I have him ranked where I have him ranked. And the athleticism has me worried. 4.84 40-yard dash. That's not going to get it done at the tight end position. And then Mitchell Evans is going to round us out here. He is my tight end at 10. And again, in a class that I don't think has a ton of depth at the tight end position. Some people disagree with me, and I'm willing to be proven wrong here. But back-to-back seasons of good college production, over 420 yards, 422 yards in 2023, 29 receptions, 41 targets, 421 receiving yards. So literally almost identical seasons, although he had more targets in 2024, 61 targets, 43 receptions, 3 touchdowns. And overall, I thought he was okay on film. That's why I have him at number 10. It was neck and neck between him and Gunnar Helm and Luke Lachey at 8, 9, 10 for me. But overall, I thought he was okay. It gives us a little bit more athleticism than somebody like Gunnar Helm, but wasn't as productive in college. So that's the rationale for him being at 10. And that is the list. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think of the top 10 there. Give me who you would have put higher or lower. And the NFL draft is just days away. Happy draft day. Happy grown man Christmas, as I like to say. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give me a like. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you want more of it. And until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.